The Todd Shapiro Show.
Time to hit the button!
On Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Okay, looking forward to this. Real good dude. I spent 12 years in global operations, supply chain, and M&A, and was the leader with Deloitte back in the day of cannabis practice, where he helped recreational launch here of cannabis in basically this major jurisdiction of Canada. And he joins us now from Namaste Technology. Darren Gill at Namaste. Darren. Hey, Darren.
Hey, Todd. How's it going, man?
I'm good. It's really nice to have you on air. Where are you in? Are you on the west side of Canada? Are you in Vancouver?
We're West Coast, man. I'm sitting in Vancouver in our office.
Oh, beautiful. What's nice there today? Is it picking up? Weather picking up for you?
The sun is shining, and at least I'm not sitting in the cold.
Wait, the sun is shining? Isn't that a rare thing in Vancouver?
It's the Vancouver trap. When people come visit and they see a beautiful day and you can see the mountains and the water, everybody wants to live here, and then we'll hit them with 9 months of rain now when they're not looking.
Yeah, you're right, the trap. How are you, I actually don't know. Are you from out that way?
I was actually originally born in Brampton, Ontario, but moved up here when I was like 3 or 4.
3 or 4, wow. And before we talk about everything to do with sort of the cannabis space, and I want you to really help us clarify what's going on with edibles here in Canada, as some laws are about to change. But I just want to ask personally, because sometimes I get caught up in the hard hustle of Toronto and the big city. Is it having the Namaste Technologies office there and having a good team there and working out of that area? Is it a little bit more relaxed of a lifestyle?
I definitely said the West Coast vibe is something to be experienced. I think we've got great local culture here. It's definitely a little more relaxed than the hustle and bustle of Toronto, where we don't really take ourselves as seriously.
And what was it like because Vancouver? You think of Vancouver, and you sort of think of like British Columbia as sort of a very accepting, friendly, cannabis friendly. Like if there was one part in this world or where you thought there was never really a stigma, you might have said in that area. And what's that been like since the legalization process of businesses such as yourselves that would be in the industry to the old sort of pioneers? Is that gone okay?
I think BC's always been quite accepting of it. I mean, we've had the 420 for as long as I can remember living out here. We've got Mark Emery and his group out here. So there's always been an association with BC Bud, for lack of a better word, and that cannabis culture. But I think as legalization's gone on, it's become a little bit more of a social norm and a little bit more talked about openly as well.
How has legalization rolled out in your opinion? I guess we're at about the 6 or 7 month mark now.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, we still continue to see a bit of a lull on supply where a lot of the big grows are still getting online, and we're still waiting for this influx of product, and hopefully with a lot of the provincial jurisdictions to start opening up a few more retail channels. Be it in most provinces today, you can only buy e-coms through a government-run website, and what will the laws look like in a couple of years, and would they open that up to allowing the private sector to come into that space? What's the rollout of stores actually look like? I know in BC here we've still got a fairly limited number of stores, and I know in Ontario you guys are even a little worse off.
Were you shocked by the Ontario sort of lottery system, which got the stores for individuals who just applied online, maybe not a lot of experience? They basically just had to come up with some capital. And really, if you won a lottery, you did. You won a lottery, so to speak, because the value of these stores is in the multiples of millions.
Yeah, no, I think you saw everybody jumping on board trying to get their name in for the lottery, whether they had any interest in cannabis or not, because it was the equivalent of the golden ticket. And you've definitely seen a lot of these guys now start to partner with some of the bigger LPs and some of the bigger players in the space that are coming in there, effectively taking over the day-to-day for them. And
how does it differ in British Columbia?
In BC, we've got a public-private model, so the government has a store up in Kamloops right now, and hopefully they'll roll more out. And they've adopted it's very similar to our liquor system, a public-private. So folks are able to go in through the application process, get vetted, and get a license to open up privately as well. And so that store count's been rolling out over the last few months.
And from what I understand about Namaste, you guys are really a big tech play. Would there ever be any goals to have an actual physical store?
I think we would primarily focus on our core business of sticking to the tech and the e-coms and really finding a way to leverage that out to our patients. And
how often, Darren Gill at Namaste, Darren, are you guys, updating systems, is it just, in the tech space, is it just nonstop for you, keeping up with the sort of latest and greatest to connect with your clients and consumers?
Absolutely. We've recently done a complete refresh of a couple of our apps, and we've recently relaunched our website as well to make the user experience a little bit better and to really make products a lot more accessible to people from a searchability function, from a product viewing function, and just giving folks the ability to really enjoy a little bit more of the experience as they navigate our sites.
And we were sort of talking off air because I was like, I want to learn about this edible stuff because you keep hearing it's coming and that's going to be a little bit more. They're going to lax the laws on that, but there's certain, I guess, there's certain amounts of cannabis you're allowed in it. What are the legalities of this? How's it playing out?
So with edibles, the edibles, concentrates, topicals should all be legalized. We keep hearing sometime in October of this year. And as they've really started to work the rules, they've made a few decisions around things like THC limit of 10 milligrams per packaged item. And, that would basically mean a full-size chocolate bar couldn't contain more than 10 milligrams. So as you and I probably know, you'd need quite a few chocolate bars, and I don't know of too many people lining up to eat full ones to just get 10 milligrams of THC. So the market and a lot of the companies in the space are actually having to resize a lot of their thought process from having large chocolate bars where you would break off a piece to actually having individual pieces now packaged, having to go into child-proof, child-resistant packaging. There's things like limits around caffeine. You can't combine them with alcohol. You can't add any vitamins or minerals to them. So that's caused a bit of a shift from I'll say, the way they have been in the gray market to what they're going to look like in the legal market for sure.
And are companies desperately sort of doing this kind of, I guess, formulation experts and finding out the science and the studies? Is that sort of the big play in cannabis right now?
Definitely. I was talking to a few folks out in the industry that were joking that I think cannabis probably employs more PhDs than universities now. Just from the perspective of, it really has become a science, whether it's looking at the way we can infuse it, really trying to understand the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and really getting down to a level of science. There's a few companies out there that are even trying to look at isolating some of those cannabinoids and being able to reproduce them in a lab environment, which, you go back a few years and this is not where I think anybody saw us being.
Yeah, I know that with the CBD side, you can find that in sort of isolates and obviously the extraction of the oils and everything. That's another thing that, from what I understand, is tough to figure out what's legal, what's not legal on the CBD side. Do you know a little bit about that, Darren? CBD's been evolving over the process, and I think as this next wave comes out, you'll be able to see a little bit more of it. But even today, if you look at the legalization framework, everything's really focused around THC limits, and there hasn't really been anything that I've seen that really clarifies what we're going to be allowed to do for sole CBD product that was considered a zero THC on a go forward. And do you guys pay attention to what's going on in the states in terms of whether it's the legal states or will they one day, federally legalize it? Is that something that you're sort of always monitoring?
Yeah, definitely. There was actually an interesting article today that I'd seen in one of the papers that they've started to open up some of the banking regulations around supporting the cannabis industry, which I think is one of the first of many steps that they'll have to go through south of the border as they get towards, eventually federally legalizing.
One stat, Darren, that really excites me is the fact that, this is really, truly one of the largest growing sectors on the planet. And I think it is in the States. I'm not quite sure where we are in Canada in terms of, job growth and job creation. How proud are you of that, of, being sort of a pioneer in this industry and helping again with Deloitte back in the day and the cannabis practice and leading the recreational launch of cannabis in Canada? That's got to make you feel real proud.
It definitely does. You step back and look at it, and it's amazing where the industry has come. From 5-6 years ago, where it was just starting to grow with wanting to acquire some medical patients and really make it legal for people that needed it. To today, it's the mainstream, and you can order it online. You can go into a dispensary and buy product legally, and I think ultimately the fact that we've made the entire supply base a lot safer. Safety was one of the biggest reasons that Canada wanted to go through and do this. And now that it's regulated and controlled and people can have traceability for where their product's coming from, we have processes for a recall should anything actually go wrong in the supply chain. It's really added a little bit of that security and ultimately keeping it out of the hands of minors. I think making it more socially acceptable, you're actually making it less taboo, where you're not creating that allure for somebody to, want to go try it because it's a taboo thing to go do.
Yeah, it's funny how humans work. I totally get what you're saying. Darren Gill joins us. How do you guys over at Namaste Technology, did you have a decent amount of it, back to the job stuff, employees and everything?
Yeah, Namastes had over 100 people worldwide, and
wow.
We're posting more jobs every day as we're trying to build out and reorganize our corporation.
And back to sort of the educational aspect of it, is Canada doing a good enough job of educating about this plant?
I think there's always more to be done, and ultimately, I think a lot of the education is going to fall back on the industry. You see a lot more organizations getting involved in clinical trials and research, and really bringing some of this to the forefront. And we're starting to see the government reciprocate and want to back some of that as well. But it's truly amazing how much the sector's taken it upon themselves to go out and create some of that research studies, the documents, the thought leadership, and the knowledge going forward.
What are sort of some things that Namaste would be sort of working on that you can or can't talk about? I guess you can talk about.
Well, I mean, one of the things we always talk about is wanting to have a completely integrated platform. And so one of the things we're doing is, we've got content guys and copywriters and stuff that are going to be starting to look at putting out more thought leadership, integrating some of that into our buying experience, where if you're on our website and you want to learn about a particular product or a particular strain, actually being able to have the ability on the site to go integrate in and go through a bit of the journey of learning all in one spot.
Darren, I know that you're a new father, and what is it interesting for you growing up in a time where it wasn't legal and now it is, and sort of how you'll approach the conversation one day with children? Have you thought about that the way maybe my dad would have talked about what a beer was when I was 7 years old and first started asking questions?
It's interesting. It's probably not until you said it that I thought I'm probably going to have this conversation two times over here very shortly as well, because I'm also expecting a baby boy in May.
Oh wow! Congratulations! That's so awesome. But it's like I think it's neat for, and I have a 3-year-old at home. I think what's really cool about what Canada has done is, again, it's about education, but ending the stigma. And it'd be really nice to know that our children will grow up without that stigma. The old, I say it all the time, the devil's lettuce, this, that. And through education, we're realizing, obviously can't make any medical claims or all that stuff yet, but, we're learning what the product can do for people.
Well, and I think ultimately by having the knowledge out there and available, you're making it safer. If people are curious, they understand about boundaries. We know the product's regulated. We know that it has limits in place for the amount of THC or other cannabinoids that are going to be in there. So it's not, you're not buying it from Back Alley Bob and not knowing what you're getting.
Yeah, and you would never want to buy a bottle of vodka from Back Alley Bob either. So I love that fact that there's the compliance and the consistency, obviously the monitoring of how products will eventually be made. The customers should want that. I'm still amazed that people would want a gray market to exist.
I think one of the things right now, and you know, I personally happen to believe that this next iteration of legalization will help some of this, has been the SKU diversity. You know, we legalized really flower as the main form in some oils. But a lot of the reason that the gray market continues to thrive is that you don't have full product diversity. You don't have full SKU diversity. There's a lot of the population that happens to love the cartridges, the extracts, the edibles. You know, you still can't get creams on the market today. So I think you'll see more and more of an adoption as you're able to create all the SKU diversity in one spot for folks.
How important would you say for someone who's looking to get into the space to, you know, not only just do your education on it and understand it all, but like, you know, how important is the branding aspect of this for people?
I think branding is one of those unique things in the space because you can't have a lot of the actual traditional ways to market. A lot of the branding really comes through that education, which is why I think you've seen a lot of the industry start to sponsor more of the educational and the research side of it. It's really through thought leadership that you can build branding, because we can't go buy billboards and ads and Google clicks and so on. It really needs to be through that thought leadership and education that we're able to create an image for our company and our brand.
What's it like, you know, running a company with, you know, up to 100 employees worldwide and having a little one and a new one coming on the way? How tired are you?
It's been a lot of fun. You know, I think you're still energized to come to work every day because every day is new. It's a different challenge, and there's definitely no 2 days alike at work or at home.
Yeah, and I guess is it, you know, over at Namaste, and I guess with any sort of new business or new emerging industry, I mean, I would imagine that management wears so many different hats.
Definitely. I think that's the fun part about working in a startup space is, you know, you hit your challenges and as a team you come together, you get over those hurdles and you continue to grow and scale. And, you know, everything this industry is doing is going to be uncharted territory for the next little while as we expand and new markets come online and new opportunities identify themselves. So it's coming together as a team, really working through a process and ultimately creating as much value for your shareholders as you can.
At Namaste, Darren is where you can get Darren Gill. Have you noticed within the industry, you know, say from your former days at Deloitte to now, are people, and I guess I'm sort of stereotyping and blanket, you know, statement here on sort of the old school type who are part of big business and big finance and stuff. Are they loosening their style too and their way they approach it? Like, you know, are people more casual now because of this industry? It's so large.
I think the size has definitely started to attract a lot more diverse talent. I think if you go look through a lot of the companies, they were started by, you know, more of the younger generation or folks that have been part of the culture for a while. But I think as these companies have grown and scaled, you're seeing big business and what I think you're alluding to being the older demographic of traditional business folks really start to recognize the opportunity here. And ultimately, you know, this is where the introduction of governance and all the whole industry starting to evolve really comes into play. Is it's taking what's been a very growth startup operation really up to the next level of becoming a sophisticated, mature organization.
Well, I don't want to get too sophisticated because I just like talking to people in it, and I'm not. I want them to allow me to be there.
Absolutely. I'm not planning on jumping in a suit and tie again anytime soon.
Yeah, that's got to be nice, eh? A big part of it, not to have the tie on every single day.
Definitely been one of the big perks of the change in the industry.
Darren Gill's with us. When are you going to get back up to Toronto?
We'll probably be out there in the next week or two.
Okay, well, let's get you in studio, hang out. I love learning about the industry from someone who's helped pioneer the industry, and a big part of it, obviously, over at Namaste Technologies. Darren, I'm really grateful for your time and just catching up and learning from you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Todd. Really appreciate it.
Okay, man, go and give him a follow at Namaste Darren.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.